All right. So thank you all for joining us for this program for the Matheson History Museum. My name is Kaitlyn Hof-Mahoney, and I am the Curator of Collections. And this is Katie Kelly, who is our former library manager. And really, this is all her fault. I will let her tell you a little bit more in a minute about how she came up with this idea. But we have a fairly extensive cookbook collection at the Matheson, and we are excited to try out some of the recipes from a few of those cookbooks and share with you a little bit about the history of the organizations that published the cookbooks, and then also some information about the history of kind of how home cooking changed over time. So thank you so much for joining us. Oh my goodness. So sorry, my cat is not where she's supposed to be. Get down. Oh, she is so bad. Anyways, welcome to my home. I have a cat and she is naughty. But we are really excited to share these with you. And she is just right in my line of vision, right on the table. Okay, focus. So thank you so much for joining us. And let's go ahead and get started. Katie, why don't you tell us how you came up with the idea for this program?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way it's turned out is that not exactly the way that I had originally thought of it, but when I was working with the Matheson last year during the NEH grant period, I was cataloging books, and there's a particular section in the collections at the archives building where it's just cookbooks for about 3 or 4 solid shelves. And so I was going through all these cookbooks, and, as part of the cataloging process, I would look through, kind of page through, just to make sure there aren't any major problems, spots, tears, things of that nature, just so that I could include it in the description in the database, because they want some pretty exhaustive description so we can see what kind of condition that the books are in. So while I was paging through some of these books and just seeing some of the books from the outside, not even going into them, I was just struck by how interesting and how almost kind of scary some of the recipes were, and just thinking, who ever thought of this recipe? Why did people ever make this recipe, and why did they do it? Just kind of having a good time to myself, being appalled at some of these vintage recipes. So I said to Kaitlyn one day, I said, you've got so many cookbooks in this collection, and one of the goals of the NEH grant is to make collections more available to the public. I thought it would be a great idea for one day in the future for there to be a program where people can come in from the community, can come into the museum for maybe a research appointment or something, and can look at the books and maybe choose a recipe or so, or maybe the museum could choose some recipes to publish and people can try making them at home, or there can maybe be a community cook-off. I don't know, that would be a large-scale thing. But just these different ideas that I had of things that people can do to try making these vintage recipes, comparing them and sharing them with other people, and just kind of having fun taking that dive into history and these old recipes from like the 50s and 60s. So that was my idea, but because of the way things happened with COVID and everything like that, it's not really possible to meet in person and have that kind of taste testing and sharing kind of thing. So Kaitlyn said, let's make it part of a webinar program series that we've been doing. And I thought that was a great idea. So it's kind of turned into a little bit of a home cooking show, if you will.
All right. So do you want to go ahead and get started with our first recipe?
Yeah, so our first recipe that we have is called 5-ounce chocolate pudding. And the ingredients, so the thing that's very interesting about these recipes when I was looking at them is the directions are incredibly sparse. So this recipe calls for 5 ounces of butter, which I have in a saucepan right over here on the stove. 5 ounces of butter, 5 ounces of chocolate, 5 ounces of sugar, and 5 eggs separated, which I have all these things prepared. So here's my 5 egg whites, my 5 egg yolks, and my 5 ounces of sugar in this bowl, and my 5 ounces of chocolate. So the directions are dissolve butter and sugar and chocolate on the stove. So I'm just going to turn it on.
So while Katie is getting the stove ready, I'll tell you a little bit about this cookbook. So this is a book called Overtures and Encores that was published by at that time, the Gainesville Community Orchestra. They have since changed their name to just the Gainesville Orchestra. So this is an organization that still exists. It was formed in 1983, and they are still active. The tickets for their 2021-2022 season will be going on sale shortly on their website. So I do encourage you to check them out as well. But this recipe was contributed by Barbara Gallant, who was a longtime member of the Alachua County School Board.
All right, now I'm going to add my chocolate to the pan as well as the sugar. So there goes the chocolate. Those I use semi-sweet chocolate chips, and I've got 5 ounces of sugar right here. So we put all those in the pan. And then we just got to wait for it to kind of melt together, which I put it on high, so it shouldn't take too long. If you're following along at home, I applaud you.
So while that is getting started, I'm going to go ahead and start with my first recipe, which is cream of wine soup.
Ooh, cream of wine soup? What does that have in it, I wonder?
It has white wine, sugar, cloves, cinnamon, sweet cream, and egg yolks.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with my wine and the sugar and the spices and go ahead and put those on to get them to start boiling.
All right, and while you do that, I have got to whip these egg whites into stiff peaks. So I'm going to have to put myself on mute for a little bit so it's not too noisy.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
All right, so I've got to add to my wine and water 3 sticks of cinnamon and 3 whole cloves. It says small sticks of cinnamon, so I think I'm probably going to do 2 because these seem at least medium. So we've got cinnamon. So this recipe comes from the Retired Senior Volunteer Program cookbook. So this is a organization that enables people who are over the age of 55 to volunteer with different community organizations. And as soon as I get all of this on the stove, I will tell you a little bit more about the history of that organization. So the recipe calls for 7 lumps of loaf sugar, which I really am not sure what that measurement is. So I'm just gonna take a guess and add some sugar. Maybe a little bit more. I don't really know. I like things sweet though, so we shall see. So now I am just going to wait for this to boil, and then I'm supposed to boil it for 10 minutes. So let me tell you now a bit about the history of the Retired Senior Volunteer Program. So their cookbook was published in 1977, and they said that the Retired Senior Volunteer Program facilitates the productive involvement of persons 60 and over in community life through volunteer service. Senior citizens possess a tremendous wealth of resources in terms of specific information and skills, general knowledge, and special characteristics, and RSVP helps the community to utilize those resources to meet its needs. So it looks like the RSVP program started in Alachua County in July of 1973. And as far as I can tell, the program is still active. It's now under the umbrella of AmeriCorps, and there is a kind of national program for seniors to continue volunteering in an organized way in their community. And, you know, I meant to say this at the beginning, and then I got distracted by my cat on the kitchen table where she is not supposed to be. But we are taking questions throughout this program. I see somebody just put the first one in. So Katie is currently making a chocolate pudding, and I am making cream of wine soup. One of these things sounds much better than the other. But we are taking questions and answers throughout the program. So if you have a question about cookbooks, the history of cooking, one of these organizations, please do put it in the Q&A box, which should be at the bottom of your screen somewhere, and we will answer those to the best of our ability. So we have at the Matheson, like Katie mentioned, a pretty substantial cookbook collection. And these are things that were published by a variety of community organizations, frequently as fundraisers to help raise money for the organization or for a specific project. And it's interesting because a lot of these cookbooks, they're very similar, and it seems that they were published, you know, by the same cookbook company that would just do tons and tons and tons of these cookbooks for community organizations across the country. Oh,
It's definitely beaten. All right, looking at our mixture on the stove, it's pretty near well melted. Not totally, but mostly there. So you know, the sparse directions, very interesting because you would think it would say, as part of the directions, beat the egg whites until stiff, but it just says dissolve butter, sugar, and chocolate on stove. Beat, add egg yolks to the chocolate mixture as well as beaten egg whites, or the beaten egg whites. And I was like, okay, so I was just supposed to assume that I was beating the egg whites, but there we have it. Glad I caught that.
so we have a question. When were the first cookbooks written? Katie, I'm going to address that one to you because I don't know.
Sure. Well, as for the kind of cookbooks we think of now, I'm not sure when I could say that books began to be mass published, but there are recipes that people have found from as far back as Roman times and even Egyptian times. So people have been writing down recipes, you know, forever and ever. But recipe books as we know it, I actually don't know when books started to be mass produced like this. Good question.
All right, so I am setting a 10-minute timer because my wine is now boiling. So
all right. Well, we're ready for the next step in this chocolate mousse.
Start heating my cream as well to go with the cream of wine soup.
So I'm going to add my egg yolks to the mixture. It does not say to take it off the heat, so I'm just going to keep it on the heat while I do this. All right, here they go. Get it all in there. All that good stuff. Can you see this? All that good stuff's going in. Maybe I should come to this side. And now I'm stirring. I'm going to take it off the heat a little bit because I don't want the eggs to cook, really. So we're stirring it in. And then as soon as I get those incorporated, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fold in these egg whites as well. So let me get a trivet for this to sit on. Here we go. And now I'm just going to first I'm going to try and temper it a little bit so that the eggs don't cook, these eggs here. So I'm going to put some hot chocolate on here.
That looks way better than what I'm making.
It's almost the same color. Fold it a little bit. Folding gently. And then, once I've got this incorporated a little bit, I'm going to add it to the pan. And we'll mix in from there. I suppose this is going to add air into the entire mixture. Okay. So now we're folding it into the chocolate mixture. And then the next direction is to bake in the oven for 25 minutes. So we're going to pop it in the oven, and we're going to continue seeing what's going on with our delicious cream of wine soup. How are you going on over there?
We're boiling away. We have another good question.
Okay.
What is our favorite or funniest recipe that we've seen in one of the cookbooks? So I'm going to bring up, this is an excellent opportunity to talk about one of the things that, due to the format of this show, we're not able to make one of these recipes, but these are the various salads that are really Jell-O. So here is, I think, one of my favorites that I have seen, and it is from the Retired Senior Volunteer Program cookbook again, and it is a shrimp salad. So we have lemon Jell-O, one large can of shrimp, a grated carrot,
a
can of crushed pineapple, and 1/2 cup of minced celery. So you're going to partly set your Jell-O and then add the rest of the ingredients, and use the juice from the pineapple as part of the liquid for Jell-O. And that's the entire recipe. So I have to say that I think the most interesting things are the Jell-O recipes.
Sounds delicious. So the things that I liked the most were the specialty cookbooks from like special interest groups. And I'm not talking about like the chamber orchestra and things like that. I mean, like, my favorite one that I probably found was from the Peanut Producers Association. And if anybody gets the newsletter from the museum, you'll see that I included a few months back in 2020, in one of the newsletters, I included one of the recipes from that book, and it was called Peanut Spaghetti Crunch. Which the name just by itself is very intriguing to me. But the premise was that you make this dish, it's like a casserole type dish, and you have raw spaghetti noodles, and to the raw spaghetti noodles you add peanuts and a bunch of different other things, and you bake it. And at the end there was a tagline, not kind of a tagline, but just a disclaimer, I guess, because I feel like they were just trying to blow smoke up people's noses. But it said, if the pasta is still crunchy, that's okay. And I was like, that's not okay. That's not okay. But it's very funny. So if you're interested in that particular recipe, that is at the museum as well. And I don't know if there are backlogged editions of the newsletter, but you could probably go and see it. Yeah. So that was a special one. All right, so I've got this mixed together. I'm not gonna lie, it doesn't look great. It looks like the eggs might have broken. But we're gonna go and proceed ahead anyway with this. So I've got my pan. I've got a baking dish. And I'm gonna pour the contents into the baking dish. And that's just user error, because sometimes that happens. And if you don't, and you know what they say, if at first you don't succeed, try again. It's just a few eggs. I might try this one again because it seems like a really nice, simple recipe. I mean, if this doesn't turn out, it might yet turn out, but it looks kind of, if you look at it, a little grainy. I don't know if you can see that, but we're going to put this in the oven. And I'm going to turn off this element on the stove. We're going to put this in the oven for 25 minutes. I've got my oven. The direction said moderate oven. It didn't give a temperature, so I put it at 325. And we'll see what happens. Hey Siri, set a timer for 25 minutes. Sorry if I activated it for you. All right, so that is the pudding.
So Katie, why don't you tell us a little bit about the evolution of home cooking?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, in looking at these recipes, I don't know if anybody noticed, but all of these recipes include, and I feel like probably a lot of recipes that we even see these days, but these ones in particular, these recipes include a lot of prepackaged kind of processed foods as ingredients. And I thought that was really interesting. And as a matter of fact, I had read a book. This book is called Cooked, and it's by a guy called Michael Pollan, Pollan. And as a matter of fact, it's also a documentary on Netflix right now. But in this book, Michael Pollan talks about various things relating to the way we cook and eat and why we do it. And in one of the sections, he's talking about kind of the food industry and how it made its way into American kitchens. So this happened around, so recipes have happened for, as we've already discussed, many, many thousands of years. In this particular instance, the time around World War II was a very interesting time in America, because, well, in other places too, but in America it was a very interesting time because there was a really interesting feeling of kind of patriotism and cooperativeness and let's work together because it's all for the troops. We want to support our troops in the war. So people were making victory gardens and they were collecting stuff to recycle, especially metals, and buying war bonds and things like that. And I feel like the food industry took that feeling and wrote it into America's kitchens, because what happened was after World War II, the food industry tried really hard and successfully to get into American kitchens by showing them these food, now he uses food wonders, that they had created, that the food industry had created to feed the troops, particularly dried foods, dehydrated foods, canned foods, things that they used in their rations. So things like Tang and instant mashed potatoes and canned orange juice concentrate, things like that. And they showed off these things as time savers. They always made sure, you know, to be like, yes, these are things that the troops had, and, you know, support the troops. I think they rode that wave in there, but they marketed them as time savers for the moms who were just so busy in their lives. And, you know, they made sure to say, oh, mom's so busy, you know, you got to get dinner on the table, because women were the main people doing the cooking and things like that in the home. Interestingly enough, though, around World War II, a lot more women were out of the house. Yes?
I'm going to pause you for a second.
Okay, I'm paused.
While I am going to take a little bit of my heated cream and pour it into my beaten egg yolk.
Don't do like me.
And hopefully will not break the egg yolk. So we're going to temper this a little bit, and then we're going to pour it back into the cream. And then we're going to add the wine and see what happens. All right. So we've got our 2 eggs added into our cream. Give that a good mix.
How's it looking?
It's looking pretty good so far.
Good.
Well, I use that term rather loosely because I think actually it looks kind of terrible.
It's about to be.
But
What will become?
My boiled spiced wine.
What kind of wine is that?
So this is, I've already forgotten, very fancy $4 barefoot wine.
Is it white or red or?
White.
Okay.
Oh,
did it call for white wine?
It did.
I thought it called for red wine, and that's where a lot of my trepidation was coming from.
No, I think that the white wine has me a lot less concerned about this than I would if it were red wine.
Yeah, the color would have been very off-putting if it had been red wine.
All right, so we have now created cream of wine soup. So now we just need...
Any kind of seasonings going in there?
No, the seasonings were boiled in with the wine. We had the cloves, the cinnamon, and the sugar.
Interesting. All right.
So let's... It's really a deficiency of my kitchen. I do not own a ladle, and I don't really know how that has happened.
Okay.
So the recipe says that you can serve this hot or cold. So we will be doing it hot today.
I think trying it hot would be probably the best way to proceed. I'm excited for you to try it. Catherine Exedy said it's a nice starter for your meal. Sounds about right.
Shout out to Visit Gainesville, Alachua County, for this lovely mug. They are one of our wonderful grant sponsors. We love them, and I love the mug. But this is, I'm trying really hard to
looks creamy for sure.
Pouring it on the computer. But let's go ahead and give this a try.
Is it good? Not good. It's not good.
Perhaps 7 lumps of loaf sugar is more than what I put in. I think that maybe this would be a little bit better with some more sugar, but it is not a great texture. It's very thick. But
nothing like thick wine.
I successfully tempered the eggs.
So. Very good. It's more than I did. I unsuccessfully tempered the eggs. All right.
Well, now please tell us more about women working during the war.
Right, absolutely. So this is all, and this is all backstory, but I feel like it's necessary. So at the same time that the industry was trying to get in and give women more of a break in the kitchen with these time-saving products, women also were more in the workforce during the time because so many men were in the war and not at home. So that's where we get things like, Rosie the Riveter. Women were working in a lot of industries at the time because they were needed. So it was even more reason for women to need time savers and, and help in the kitchen because a lot of them were also working during the time. So I think that these were all factors that really helped the food industry to get these packaged products into American kitchens and kind of help them stay there. And they still are there today. You see a lot of recipes that call for cream of chicken soup or, canned different cream soups and things of that nature that go into like casseroles or what have you. And it's reflected in the recipes that we have here today. As a matter of fact, I used store-bought chocolate chips. I mean, you would have had to buy baker's chocolate anyway. But this next recipe that I'm about to do calls for something that we had to kind of puzzle out a little bit because the recipe, it's called Fun on a Bun. So it's good. It's called Fun on a Bun, and it calls for 1 can of luncheon meat. And I thought to myself, what on earth is luncheon meat? And then it hit me, Spam. It's Spam. So I went and got a can of, I hate Spam, by the way, just for everybody's reference. But I went to the store and I got a can of Spam. It also calls for 1 small onion and a ½ pound of cheddar cheese, which we are meant to grind together, but I don't have a grind attachment for my KitchenAid mixer. So I'm gonna use this blender. and it's going to be an interesting time. So what I've got is here's my my small onion that I cut up. I've got my cheese here in this bowl, and then I've got my block of Spam right here, and I'm just gonna dice this up really quickly into some like 1/2-inch chunks, nothing fancy. And then we're gonna get them going in the blender with this onion and cheese. I originally thought that we would have trouble because, you know, when you blend things, you need to have some kind of liquid in there so things move around. But I figured out that you put the onions in first, then the Spam, so the cheese won't gunk up the gears because the onions and Spam will release some kind of moisture and allow everything to blend together pretty smoothly. And let me tell you, this is not going to look great. It's not going to look great. But we're going to go ahead and get this in here. So I've got my Spam in my bowl with my cheese. So the cheese is on the bottom, then Spam, then my onion on top. And from there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get it into this blender right here. Can everybody see that? Move it over a little bit.
And then I am going to go ahead and mute Katie again while she is using the blender.
Yep, we're going to need to be.
All right, Katie is muted. So while she is blending, we had some cooking advice come in through the Q&A box about egg yolks and hot items. Somebody has suggested when adding egg yolks to a mixture that has been heated, make sure the mixture is taken off the stove and given time to cool. If not, the egg yolks will cook and result will be grainy. Same with folding in beaten egg whites. Wait until the chocolate is room temperature. So I think that that is excellent advice, and we have been flummoxed by trying to cook these things live. She's trying to unmute. She has something to say.
I've learned this the hard way today.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and put Katie back on mute. And then we also have the note that the cream of wine soup might be a good way to use up some of your leftover white wine. And I think that that certainly could be true. I kind of set myself up for failure because I honestly don't really like wine. So I'm perhaps not the best person to taste test this recipe. Somebody else would probably very much enjoy it. But while Katie is blending, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the cookbook that the Fun on a Bun recipe has come from. So that cookbook is from the Gainesville Charter chapter of the American Businesswomen's Association. So that cookbook was published in 1968, and the first printing of 100 books was in February, and then the second printing of 100 books was in July. And as far as we can tell, the Gainesville chapter of the American Businesswomen's Association is no longer active. There is no Gainesville chapter listed on the national website for the American Businesswomen's Association. But according to their national website, their mission is to bring together businesswomen of diverse occupations and to provide opportunities for them to help themselves and others grow personally and professionally through leadership, education, networking support, and national recognition. And this is, like I mentioned earlier, you had kind of these big cookbook companies that would publish just so many cookbooks for local organizations. And so that's one of the things where you get some interesting bits in the cookbooks that would have been, you know, just kind of copy and pasted from each one. So for example, in this particular recipe, at the beginning of the meat, fish, and poultry section, there is a page of wild game recipes that tell you how to cook roasted wild duck, larded grouse, southern fried quail, venison with sour cream, and moose steak. I don't think that there are many mooses in Gainesville. So that was an interesting thing to discover when going through this cookbook. All right, it looks like we've got our blended Spam is ready. Katie wants to unmute to continue telling us about Fun on a Bun.
It's a crime, really, in my opinion. All right, here we go. Take our blade out really quickly. Get some of that lovely, kind of really the texture of a pate. So just going to get this off here as much as I can. And to this, we're going to be adding some cream of mushroom soup. Doesn't that look delicious? Let's get that in the bowl. We can add our final ingredient. All right, so for this, I've got the oven turned up to, now this is really good because I've got a double oven. Got the oven turned up to, actually the recipe did not list a temperature for this. It just said heat on grill or in oven. But I've put it up to about 375, and I'm gonna keep them in there for just a little bit. Now I've got some in the oven already that have been cooking, so we'll be able to take them out and take a look, just like on TV. The magic of TV cooking. So we'll be able to take a look at what the finished product looks like. Okay, let's get every little morsel out of there. All right, that's enough. All right, to this mixture, we add our cream of mushroom soup, which I have right here. All right, looks delicious. Put that in the sink. Just mix that right up. Now, what is the delivery method for this delicious conglomeration, you might ask? It is Fun on a Bun. So I went to the store. It just said get buns in the recipe. So I went to the store and I found the closest thing that I think would be appropriate for this, because the different kinds of bread they have at the store range from very soft to like French baguettes and just sliced sourdough and things like that. So what I did is I went and I got some rolls that are kind of like Kaiser rolls or Cookbooks rolls. They are like this. And what I've done is I've prepared them ahead of time. You are supposed to cut open the bread and scoop out the middle, so you can replace it with this. So we're going to go ahead and get that in there. And there we go. And then we're going to hide our crime. We're going to hide our crime with the lid there. And then we're going to put it in a sheet of tin foil. We're going to wrap it up like that. There you have it. I'm going to put that on the tray. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that for all of these. And I've got, it calls for a dozen. I've done part of them, so we're going to take those out in a second and see how they turned out. But we're going to take these 6 and we're going to fill them up and put them in the tin foil. Did we say who this this delightful concoction was contributed by?
Yes, I did talk about that cookbook while you were blending up.
All right.
So while you're filling the rest of the buns, let's have a quiz.
Oh no.
Katie did not
High
know.
pressure quiz.
So this is the handy spice guide to make you become a seasoned seasoner. So I'm going to read a description of one of the spices, and Katie will attempt to tell me which spice it is. And this comes from the Retired Senior Volunteer Program cookbook. All right, let's start with The leaf of a safe bush growing in Italy, Greece, and Mexico. Uses. An excellent flavoring for any tomato dish, especially pizza, chili con carne, and Italian specialties.
Okay. I mean, there are lots of different kinds of leafy bushes that grow in the Mediterranean, but I'm going to say that this one is meant to be basil.
You are close, but not quite.
Dang it. Oregano.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. How about an herb of the mint family, grown in France and Chile, has a minty sweet flavor. Uses in beverages, jellies, and to flavor soups, stews, fish, sauces. Also excellent to sprinkle on lamb while roasting.
What was the very first part of that?
An herb of the mint family, grown in France and Chile.
France and Chile. Herb of the mint family. Well, there's two things in my mind that it could be, but I'm going to go with the one that I don't like, which is cilantro.
Incorrect.
Oh, is it cumin?
Also incorrect.
Dang it. Oh, I'm stumped.
It is marjoram.
Ah, marjoram. Okay.
All right. Here is a real throwback spice. A vegetable protein derivative for raising the effectiveness of natural food flavors. Uses. In small amounts, adjusted to individual taste, can be added to steaks, roasts, chops, seafoods, stews, soups, chowder, chop suey, and cooked vegetables.
Is that monosodium glutamate? MSG? All right. I got one.
How about the dried leaves and stems of an herb grown in the United States and North Mediterranean area? Has an aromatic leafy flavor. Uses for flavoring tomato dishes and tomato paste, turtle soup, also used in cooked peas, squash, snap beans, sprinkle chopped over lamb chops and poultry.
It says specifically the stem?
Dried leaves and stems.
Dried leaves and stems. Let's see. Dried leaves and stems. I'm trying to think of what herb you would use stems on. Dried leaves and stems. What uses for it again? Tomato stuff?
Tomato stuff, turtle soup, also used in cooked peas, squash, snap beans, sprinkled chopped over lambs, cooked lambs, and poultry.
Lamb and poultry, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Could it be rosemary?
It is not.
Dang. All right. Well, I got one anyway.
It's
what is it? Basil? That one's basil? Okay. So we've got our buns filled. All 6 of them. I've got them here all snugly on this tray. I'm going to go ahead and put them in the oven. And I'm going to take out the ones that I put in earlier. All right. Here we go. We put down some trivets because this is warm. Let's see how it turned out. This fun on a bun. We're about to have some fun right now. Oh. Well, here it is. Doesn't look much different.
It looks like
maybe a little bit more toasty. So now it's time to try it because Kaitlyn tried hers, so I'm gonna try this one. I hate this. I hate everyone and everybody because this is really good. I'm incensed. Why is this delicious?
You know, Spam is just really popular. There's got to be something to it.
I'm so mad at myself. Why? Why are you good?
All right. While Katie is raging at her fun on a bun, I'm going to go ahead and get started with Bananas Foster.
Ugh.
This is another recipe from the Gainesville Community Orchestra cookbook. And this recipe is actually supposed to be done in the microwave, but I am going to go ahead and do it on the stove, just because I think it'll be a little bit simpler that way. So I'm going to start my pan and start melting some butter.
I'm gonna wash my hands because I licked my finger. All right. Oh, the pudding's ready. Siri, stop. Hey Siri, stop. Let's get that out of the oven. Take a look at how it turned out. Oh, okay. Something happened. Here we are. There's our chocolate. It looks like a cake. Here's our chocolate pudding.
It looks more like a brownie, but maybe that's just through the camera.
Well, it does look a bit like a brownie, but it is extremely wobbly.
Oh, yes, it is.
All right. I'm going to get a little bowl out and try this.
So we have a note in a couple of notes in the Q&A box.
Mm-hmm.
Wine is one of the ingredients in her favorite recipe, the chicken marsala. And even though she doesn't really like wine either, she does very much like chicken marsala. We had a guess for one of the spices as sage, which unfortunately was also incorrect.
Yeah.
Bananas Foster is very good. You can grill it in foil while making dinner on the grill. We are going to be trying flambeing today.
Ooh.
So
Exciting.
my brother is about to graduate from firefighter school, and I really hope that I don't have to call his friends in today.
All right, let's get a little bit of this pudding out. Actually, it's also supposed to be served with whipped cream, which I have, coming back to our discussion earlier, I have whipped cream in a can, processed, made out of probably hydrogenated oils instead of actual cream, but you know, there we go. It saves time.
All right, to my melted butter, I'm adding brown sugar and cinnamon. And we are going to bring this to a boil to create the syrup to coat the bananas.
Okay, here's a look at our pudding in the bowl. Gonna get some nice whipped cream on there if I can get this lid off. There we go. And a little for me. Here we go. Let's see. It's actually really good, even though I messed up the eggs. Really airy because of the eggs that we folded in. I mean, there is a little bit of a grainy texture, but it's really chocolatey. It's airy and it's sweet, so I can't complain.
So that one was, it was just the chocolate, the eggs.
It was one of those, it's like a recipe like pound cake. So it's 5-ounce chocolate pudding. So it was 5 ounces of chocolate, 5 ounces of sugar, 5 ounces of butter, and 5 separated eggs. Very simple recipe. And it was really tasty. And it only took like 25 minutes plus the assembly time. So that's really good. I'm gonna go put that away.
I am getting my rum ready for Bananas Foster. It calls for 1/3 cup. So as my syrup gets ready.
I'm still so mad about that fun on a bun. I hate that. I hate that it's good. I wanted to make fun of it.
Well, I guess you have to think if they included it in the cookbook, it must have been at least good enough for somebody to have it.
Yeah, but then they've got those Jello mold recipes in there. Lemon Jello with shrimp?
I mean, you do put lemon when you have, you know, shrimp cocktail. You squeeze some lemon juice under it.
I suppose that's true. So going back to, and I don't know if we finished the discussion about the recipes, but basically, because it was supply driven with the food industry, it was a supply driven kind of push to get into America's kitchens. And part of this was to show how versatile these products could be and how many ways you could use them, so that they really were time savers and they really were worth purchasing and keeping in your home. So they went out and did things like, and this is where that Peanut Producers Association cookbook comes from, in my opinion, finding as many ways as possible to use the same product. So for example, if you have, say, a can of fruit cocktail, not only could it be just fruit cocktail that you dump into a bowl, you would pour in Jello with the fruit cocktail, you put it in the freezer, and you've got fancy jellied fruit cocktail salad that you serve it on a lettuce leaf, and it's an accompaniment to dinner. You know, or, you know, tomato soup in a can is not just soup that you can have for lunch. You can use it to make sauces and salad dressings and, you know, all kinds of things. So they really, really push these marketing campaigns to show people that there are multiple ways, myriad ways, in which you could use these processed foods in your home. And it wasn't just so that they could get rid of the supply, because the other thing is processing food is much more profitable than selling things whole. You make more and more money the more something is processed. So it's extremely profitable to process foods and sell them packaged. And, you know, that's the other side, you know, consumerism and capitalism. They wanted to get these things made into these secondary products, these processed things, these canned and bottled and whatever products, and get them into people's homes so that they could make more money with them. So that's pretty much what I have to say about that. And, you know, that's why they came up with all these recipes. And you could see there are recipes that we've been using. And the next recipe that I'm going to do makes exclusive use almost of prepackaged foods. The next thing that I'm going to make after she's done with her recipe
go ahead and
is...
get that started. We're getting...
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get it started now. So the next thing I'm going to make is called Bisquick cookies. All right. And for this one, we've got, the recipe calls for sugar and butter, which I have in this bowl, as well as Bisquick and instant mashed potatoes, dried instant mashed potatoes. So I've got those in this bowl. And one egg, which I didn't crack into this bowl, and I should have. Got my mise en place game is off. All right, that's ready. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to I'm going to cream the sugar and the egg together. And I'm going to just do that with a fork because my hand mixer is dirty from doing the eggs earlier. So this butter's really soft, so I can just mix it with the sugar. And then when I've got that all together, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add in the Bisquick and the instant mashed potatoes, which is interestingly enough. So when you look at this, and you can look at this recipe it should be on the Facebook page. When you look at this particular recipe, it calls for sizes of packages. And now these sizes of packages are not available in stores anymore. The closest thing I could find, it called for a 3-ounce package of instant mashed potatoes, which is not a thing anymore. Closest thing I found was like a single serving size of instant mashed potatoes, and it was 4 ounces. So I used that. Now, when you make this, if you do decide to make this, when you make this, you're going to want to use just plain instant mashed potatoes, because the ones that are in the store that are like 4 ounces or whatever, they're all flavored, and they're all flavored of things that are not going to go well with sugar, like cheese or garlic or, you know, things of that nature. So might as well just get the smallest box you can of plain potatoes. Okay, that's kind of mixed up here a little bit. I'm just gonna pop this into the microwave for a second just to get it a little bit more creamed.
I have now added my bananas into my butter, sugar, and cinnamon mix. And I am going to let that cook for just a minute. And I'm going to just pop the rum in the microwave just to warm it up a little bit. And then we're going to try catching it on fire.
Mmm. Okay, so that's a little bit more malleable. Now to the sugar and butter, I'm going to add 1 egg. Get that all mixed together well. And it's kind of like, I mean, if you don't think about it too hard, it's like making regular cookies. Just don't think about the fact that you're using mashed potatoes in this.
All right. So we are adding our rum. And I have never flambéed anything before, so let's see if this will even work. Oh, it sure did. Now what?
Well, I guess you just wait till it goes out.
Look at that. I've done it.
Very good.
I am pretty impressed with myself, I must say.
You look like such a chef right now.
Well, that was pretty fun. I should flambe things more often. I am going to put this down now.
That's a good call. Good call. All right. Now we're going to add our dry ingredients, which we're not thinking too hard about what they are. And we're mixing. And it seems just like regular cookie dough. Now, if you're going to make these at home, once again, bravo if you are. But if you're going to make these at home, I would suggest that after you combine this dough, you go ahead and put it in the fridge like you would a regular cookie dough so that the fat can firm up a little bit, because otherwise they will spread. And because of the nature of the program, I was not able to do that with this batch that I made that I have prepared. So they have spread. But if you chill the dough a little bit before you go ahead and bake it, they will not spread so much. All right.
So we have some potato-related comments. I have a friend whose father makes potato candy every year for Christmas.
Interesting.
Then also a suggestion of a recipe for potato chip cookies that are very delicious. And this person does not like potato chips. So that I'm very interested in.
I actually am interested in potato chip cookies as well because of the salty sweet kind of dynamic. All right, how's that Bananas Foster?
I haven't tried it yet because I'm scared I'm going to burn my face.
Just blow it a little bit.
Working on it.
Okay.
But,
right, so,
you know, cookies with pretzels in them are delicious. So I bet potato chips would be pretty similar to that.
Probably. I mean, I've had a candy bar that had potato chips in it, like a chocolate bar, and that was pretty good. So, well, how is it?
It's pretty good.
Oh, good.
The main flavor is definitely rum. So I forgot that I did reduce the recipe a little bit because I had 3 bananas and the recipe called for 4 bananas. So I reduced everything else, but I did not reduce the rum. But
you got some extra strong Bananas Foster there.
Not bad.
All right, well, now we're going to take our dough, and by rounded spoonful, this is a teaspoon, I'm just going to drop it onto the plate. And if you chill this, it will not be so gloopy when you drop it. And you might even be able to get it into like a tube shape and just cut it off like those Pillsbury cookie tubes that you get at the store. Pre-packaged food, processed food. It was very profitable for them to make it like that, and fast and convenient for people who want to have cookies but don't want to spend a lot of time making them. Anyway, if you want to find out more about that I was talking about with the food industry and everything like that, I would really recommend Cooked, which is the book by Michael Pollan, but also it is a documentary on Netflix, and it's really good, and I recommend it. All right, so we get these on the tray, and then we're going to put them in the oven. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to show you what I've got, because I've got some that I've already baked. So take them out. And they're going to end up a little something like this. Well, like I said, these ones spread a lot. So if you chill the dough, it probably won't spread so much, and they'll be more like just kind of regular. But they look just like regular cookies, except they're made with potatoes and Bisquick. Bisquick, I'm sure a lot of us have used Bisquick to make many different bread things, pancakes, biscuits, all kinds of stuff. Never used it in cookies before though. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna try these. They're not terribly crisp, but I guess not all cookies are. Wow, that's not good.
Well, what's the secret ingredient to those ones?
Huh? Well,
I don't think you're giving those cookies a fair shake. What's your secret ingredient?
So if you recall, I said earlier that the single serving size mashed potatoes, instant mashed potatoes at the store only come in such flavors as garlic or cheese. I know this firsthand because I could only find that, so I bought cheese potatoes. And cheese and sugar are not a huge, not at least not cheddar cheese. I mean, cheesecake is good, but cheddar cheese and sugar are not a great mix. So these are interesting. I'm not going to have any more of it, actually. I've punished myself enough. I'm going to have some of this as a reward.
You know, I bet that would be very good with bananas foster on top of it.
Probably.
Well, that brings us to the end of our recipes. So thank you all so much for coming to this program and watching us try these interesting vintage recipes from our community cookbooks at the Matheson.
And we are sorry for our crimes.
We are really glad that you were able to make it today. And we are a independent nonprofit. We're a community museum. And if you liked what you see, please consider going to our website and making a donation or becoming a member of the museum. And we can keep you up to date with all of our upcoming programs and events. The museum recently reopened. We are now open on Fridays and Saturdays from 1 to 4 p.m. So please do come by and see us in person if you're comfortable doing that. And we will hopefully see you. Our next program is going to be 1 month from today on May 29th at 4 p.m. And we will be partnering with the organization in Gainesville called Mama's Club. And we will be sharing a program honoring Harriet Tubman. So that ought to be pretty interesting. Please be on the lookout. We'll be sending out details about that program in the next week or so. So be on the lookout for that. And we hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much for joining us.
This is good and I'm angry.
What a good note to end on. All right, have a good night, everyone.